Remember searching singlemuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by singlemuslim.com. And I'm Fahima Mohammed, a certified relationship and couples coach, as well as your host for tonight. A very, very warm welcome from all of us here on British Muslim TV and for the first episode of 2022. I want to welcome all of you if you're streaming live on Sky Channel 752 or Facebook or Twitter. And we also have a live call-in. If you want to be part of the discussion, you are more welcome to join in. And that number is 01924 231 083. However, if you want to remain anonymous and send in any messages, and I can read them out on the show, so I can be answered by myself or my guest tonight, then you can message us on 07585 835 150. I just want to say that I do appreciate everyone that supports us. And for the new people that are watching, I just want to also remind everyone that this is a relationship issues that we are raising, and we bring in guests from different parts of their profession, experience, to give their insights as to what are the challenges, especially in our Muslim community. And even though if some of the topics may be similar, it's because everyone has a different perspective. And we just want to make sure that we open up different conversations for people to actually help them through their, issues, especially around challenges. And tonight we have an amazing guest who is very experienced with regards to dealing with marriages, especially the ones that do not end in a very good way. And we have with us tonight, Mr. Javed Iqbal. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I also want to say, as much as we love the supporters from our viewers, the show would not be, the way it is unless we have guests like yourselves to give up your time, your family time, your work, and to be on the show with us, to actually give us all the information that you want to share so that people that are watching can hopefully learn from it. So thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate it. Before we actually move on, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do, the profession that you're involved in? Because I think it's really interesting so that we can actually have a start as to where we're going to head with this discussion.
Yeah, my name you already know. My company is called Clear Sky Legal Services. We deal only in family law, so we're a family law specialist, predominantly dealing in divorce, separation, Children's Act matters, and matrimonial finances, and also Islamic divorce. So we've been doing it, I've been doing it for about 15 years or so. And we're not a firm of solicitors. I've got to mention that. We're actually a legal services company. So we basically help, assist, guide, can do absolutely everything. But we're not classed as solicitors. We're a legal services company. That's very important for legal reasons. I need to say that. But yeah, so we've been operating now for about 2.5 years, and it's been absolutely brilliant, to be honest. You get to see a lot of things, which I'm sure we'll discuss, different people, different personality types. And yes, just it can be hard work, but it's absolutely brilliant.
I love it. I think what you do is so valuable in the community, because we do need people like consultants to actually help us and guide us through the process. Someone's going to actually, understand also our values, our culture, and our beliefs, as well as direct, people in the direction that they require, especially when they're going through such challenging times. Now, when you mention about the legal services, about especially divorce, and failed relationships, what are some of the case studies that you can actually share with us as to what are the reasons why marriage actually fail? I mean, this is the topic for tonight, and we want to obviously unwind what are the main reasons of failure, because we get statistics, but we're not sure if it's coming from the actual Muslim community. But we want to highlight that so that we can actually understand what are the failures and hopefully learn from them. And, people can actually understand before they're going into it, as to taking some of the tips and strategies forward. So what are the main complaints that you get?
Well, legally speaking, you can only get divorced for 5 reasons. So you've got unreasonable behavior, 2-year separation, 2-year desertion, adultery, or 5-year separation. Now, I'd say over 85%, if not more, of divorces happen for unreasonable behavior. That's the most common excuse. Legally speaking, there's only 5 reasons. That's the predominant reason, is unreasonable behavior. The umbrella of unreasonable behavior can be absolutely anything. Now, we deal predominantly, not exclusively, but predominantly we deal with the Muslim community, a lot of South Asians. When I say South Asians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, you get a lot of Indians as well, people from the Muslim faith, Hindu, Sikh faith, but the actual cultural element tends to be the same. There's a variety of reasons, absolutely a variety of reasons. A lot of them, I'd say majority of them, come down to understanding and cultural reasons. One of the main factor, the main ingredient here, which I think is similar to everything in my experience, is the foundation of the marriage. If the foundation of the marriage is not solid, if it's incorrect, if there's not been, for want of a better word, full disclosure, if there's not been an understanding, if you haven't cemented that, then the marriage sooner or later is going to be doomed to failure. So I would say that's one of the sort of main reasons. The life reasons, i.e. what we have to put down on a piece of paper as to why that happened. There's a multitude of reasons. You've got family, you've got lifestyle, you've got cultural beliefs, you've got religious beliefs, you've got people not, there's an old saying that, if the wheels of the car are all moving in the same direction, the car moves. And a majority of the times, unfortunately, not only are the wheels not moving, the wheels have come off and they're flattened tires and the car's completely broken. So unfortunately, people have to get divorced then.
I love the analogy, actually. I think you're giving us some real treats of understanding. And it seems like your company, mashallah, is very busy. And inshallah, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, we will definitely get your details at the end. But when you talk about foundations and that's being rocky, do you feel that, these are for newly married, or can that also be where people are putting up for years? And whatever has been the red flags at the very beginning are the same reasons that they are getting divorced or separated at the end. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the thing is there's a difference. Now, when I say there's a difference, is the people who have been married for 20, 25 years. It's very interesting you say that. Yesterday, I had a lady come to see me. She got married at the age of 16. She's been married 24, 25 years now. So she's kind of in her late 30s, early 40s. Now, after she told me everything she'd been through, absolutely, and it was horrific in terms of the physical violence, the abuse, the controlling, coercive behavior, the sort of financial abuse in terms of family, she still was unsure. She was still like, I still want to be with him. I still want to be there. The problem was that she was completely institutionalized. She didn't know any other life. Now, when you get married at the age of 16, and these are predominantly arranged marriages, of a certain age, so a lot of these took place in the early to, let's say, mid-90s, there were no red flags, because you can only have a red flag if you're looking out for one. So if you had an arranged marriage to your first cousin, there is no red flag, because your dad or your mum has said, this is your maternal or paternal uncle, son or daughter, you're getting married to them, and that was it. And that's the only life that they knew. That's the only thing that they've seen. Now, red flags is predominantly when you're getting to know someone, when you've got I won't say you've got a choice, that suggests something else, but when you're actually proactively looking to get to know your partner, that's when you need to be looking out for the red flags. That's when they come about.
But do you feel that when it's premarital situations, that even the parents are looking out for certain traits, characteristics that can also play part, even if the partner is not fully involved? Does that actually also matter? How does that work?
Well, it does and it doesn't, because the problem we have is our parents are of a certain generation. Mm-hmm. Now, their ideas, ideology, their way of living, their thoughts, processes, what they think is important in a marriage, the younger generation, certainly this generation, may not think it's important. So what the parents are looking out for, he or she may tick all the boxes. He's a great earner. He lives at home with his family. He looks and feels polite to everybody, and there's nothing wrong with him. But that's not necessarily what the girl or the boy getting married to the girl is looking out for. So although the parents, wholeheartedly, and I think in a good way, are looking out for the children, they're not looking for the same things. So it's very important for the actual person getting married to get to know their partner. That's the most important thing. The parents can only help to a degree because, again, they're coming from a certain perspective, a certain angle. And unfortunately, I've seen this a lot because sometimes a lot of our South Asian communities can be quite, the word I'm looking for is conservative. I'm going to sort of say that without trying to insult anybody, but I think the real word I'd like to say is probably they're a little bit stuck in their ways. There's a big generation gap between the old school and the new school. And what they look for is just either relationship, cultural parity. That's what they're looking for. And the younger generation, when I say the younger generation, people who are probably in their early 20s, mid-20s, who have seen life, who have grown up in the internet generation, who have grown up with Sky TV and 900 channels, etc., they're not necessarily looking for that. So
Absolutely.
you have to be really careful. My mum's 80. If I said to my mum now, please find me a wife, first of all, she'd slap me because I've been married for 15 years. However, after that, she would say, oh, I know this girl, but I know because my mum's 80, she comes from a certain generation. She comes from a certain mindset. She comes from a certain area in Pakistan. She comes from a certain sort of way of thinking. So she's going to find someone who she thinks is going to make a good daughter-in-law, who she thinks is going to make a good wife in accordance with her generation, her thoughts, her thinking. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to mesh with me. It's going to mesh with what I want from life or how I want to do things. So getting parents involved is good because obviously you need the involvement of the elders, etc. But I think letting them have the ultimate decision is probably not such a good thing. And as controversial again as it might be, from my experience having done this for 15, 20 years, and I'll be absolutely honest, not all, it is quite a small minority. Not all parents have their children's interest at heart when it comes to marriage. I'll say that openly because I've seen many instances where the child, be it a boy or a girl, has said, Dad, Mum, I don't want to get married. Parents have turned around and said, no, you don't understand. There's cultural, family, social pressures. This has to happen. Because
that is a very important point. And you know what? We're going to pick up on that very, very shortly, but we are coming into a break. And I'm so excited for this conversation because it's exactly what we need to hear. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. And we are going to pick it up in a few moments. However, we are coming into a break. Stay exactly where you are as this topic's just getting hotter. And inshallah, if you want to be part of it, we will take your calls and questions after the break. But stay exactly where you are and see you shortly. Take care. Salam.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We're having an amazing conversation with Javed Iqbal tonight, and he's really being real with his talk. And I think that even though it's a generalized conversation, it will hit some communities. And I think it's needed to hear what's the impact, because we want to have successful long-term marriages for our children. But unfortunately, if it doesn't start off in that way with the right intentions and the right ways, and a lot of tradition and culture does get involved, then unfortunately, it is only your flesh and blood, your children, that actually is going to have that negative impact, which was what you were saying, Javed. I loved what you just actually started off saying before we went to the break. Could you maybe elaborate on maybe what could be a balance and a combination? Because as you mentioned, we have a generation gap of the youngsters feeling and thinking in a particular way. We also have the elders that have their own way, and together it could work. However, I feel that generally there isn't much information even on both sides, because you might find even the young ones that want to put their spin on things, but all they're thinking about is, for example, he or she's attractive, we connect, we click, we like each other, there's chemistry, but it's a lot more deeper than that. I mean, I study human mind and behavior, and I feel that, it's lacking from whether it's the old generation or the new generation, that unless you understand core values, beliefs, knowing rights, responsibilities, whether it's Islamically or psychologically, there is definitely a lack there. So how would you advise where we can maybe fill this gap?
Well, I mean, it's interesting what you just said, that the younger generation want to click, connect, they want to do that thing. Now, let me put this to you and to the viewers. Like I said, my mum's 80, and I keep using my mum as an example, and I'm sorry, Mum, if you're watching. But if I went to my mum now, who's 80, and I said, Mum, yeah, I want to marry someone who I connect with, who I've got the X factor with, and we kind of, our minds meet, she's going to look at me as if I've got 5 heads. Because like you said, there's that generation gap. She's not going to know what the X factor is. She's not going to know what connect is and what, we're kind of, we're like connected and our minds are meeting, because they look at everything practically. So that generation gap needs to be bridged, where we do need to take things from our elders that were good within their marriage. There were certain things that were good within their marriage. And we need to obviously put our own a sort of spin on it. But the spin we put on it, the issue we have is sometimes, and I get this a lot, is that sometimes the youngsters are a little bit lost. When I say youngsters, and again, I don't mean that in a sort of derogatory manner, but i.e. people who are looking to get married, or the sort of younger generation, the new generation, is that they can be a little bit lost because they don't have a precedent. They don't have a precursor. They don't have somebody who's done that before, a lot of them. So the only marriage they've seen is their parents who got married, let's say, in an arranged marriage. One parent is from abroad, one parent is from here. They've seen a certain marriage, they've seen a certain setup, and they don't know anything else, and they've been brought up with a certain mindset. So I think a lot of it is trying to change the mindset and trying to change the sort of way of thinking. The generation gap needs to happen where the parents need to explain to their children that, listen, our generation was different. Our parents wanted something else. We're your parents. We know generationally things have changed. Look at how much life has changed in the last 20, 25 years in terms of internet, social media, technology. What me and you are doing now, you couldn't do that, maybe 15, 20 years ago. Everything's changed. So the young generation then obviously need to tell the older generation, well, listen, things have changed as well. So we can't just get married to somebody who we've never met. We can't get married to somebody who is going to say on the day of the nikah. This is, it's 2022 now. We need to meet him or her. We need to get to know them. Your parents will not understand everything. They're not going to understand the X factor. They're not going to understand connection. But you can keep that to yourself as long as they understand why you want to do it, i.e. the core. That's the key here. But the parents need to also understand that it is 2022 and you can't just say, okay, you fit and you fit, therefore you're going to get married. Your uncle's son is 22, you are 21, you are going to get married. Years ago it used to happen. It can't happen anymore. But unfortunately it does. It does, and that's a travesty. I think in this day and age, considering we're 70, 80 years into the immigration experience, where our sort of forefathers came in the 50s or the 60s, 70 years later, we're still stuck in that sort of mindset is a little bit frightening. And what's interesting is in my client base, I've got a lot of ladies who are in their mid to late 40s, and they're all getting divorced. And I kind of, you kind of look at a pattern, you look at something that's like a chart or something, you look at it and think, okay, what's this pattern? And it hit me that what actually happened is all these girls had an arranged marriage 30 years ago. And the people who arranged the marriage, i.e. the girl's father, the girl's mother, her father-in-law, her mother-in-law, they've all passed away now. The children have all grown up, they've flown the nest. So this woman now who's 47, 48, who's been married to this guy for 30 years and vice versa, is looking at him going, well, hang on a minute, the very people who got us married, the very foundation that this marriage was built on, i.e. relationship between your father, my father, or your mother and my father, however it works, then people have gone now. So what is actually holding us together? There was a point where it might have been the children. The children have all grown up now. So what's actually keeping me and you together? What's our relationship? Mine and yours personally. Tariq and Bushra, I'm using generic names. Tariq and Bushra, what's keeping us together? Bushra looks at Tariq and goes, nothing really. Because I'm not scared of my parents or my in-laws anymore because they passed away. The kids, I was scared I might be alone and I might have to raise these children in the 90s and the early 2000s. They've all grown up and married. And Tariq's looking at Bushra going, why do I want to stay married to you? I fulfilled all my duties. And boom, they've gone. But had they had that solid foundation based on friendship, understanding, trust, getting to know each other, the connection, the meshing, the kids have grown up, the parents have passed away. They have their own relationship that can survive any seismic shifts in life. They can still survive it. That's where you need to get to, where you've got your own foundation between you, your wife, or the wife between the husband.
Very interesting that you say that, because I have a different take, to be honest, because I think that marriages in the past lasted because maybe there was more tolerance and it wasn't as easy to accept divorce. Whereas maybe there's still similar problems, but the mindset has changed, and also women's roles have changed, where it's, even though there's still a stigma, but to be honest, people are quite okay now to say that, I actually want to have this divorce, where it's not so much of a shame as it was before. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree to a degree, but I think your reason is correct. But I think there's also a multitude of reasons, because I know for a fact, and again, I'm sorry, Mum, but like, let's say in the 1970s, if my mum decided, my mum's going to kill me, honestly, right? If my mum in the 1970s thought, I'm going to leave his dad and I'm going to go, where's she going to go? She comes from a village. She's uneducated. She lives in a family structure. She's got no earning capacity. She's got absolutely no life skills. She doesn't speak the language. So there was a complete lack of option. So it was like, you know what, it's do or die. I'm just going to stay here. The other thing was, again, like I said, you had this family structure. You had this community structure that kept people together. Because, and you'll know this as well, is a lot of South Asian families, especially the ones predominantly that come from Pakistan, is we don't just do one marriage and one marriage. We don't have one guy get married to one girl. They'll be like, I've got a guy, I've got a brother, and I've got a sister. You've got a brother and a sister and a sister, and you've got a brother and an uncle. Let's all four of us get married. Let's all intermarry, and we'll have 6 weddings in one day. And what tends to happen is that is almost like a weave. That weave, when it's twisted, it stays tight. So what they do is they just, them kind of marriages, because what you would say is, if you're going to leave my sister, I'm going to leave your sister. I genuinely had a case, this was years ago, must have been like 2011. A gentleman come to me with his, he came to me and he said, I want to get divorced. And I said, okay, that's fine. Come tomorrow, bring your documents, etc. So he come the next day and he brought this lady with him. And I said, who's the lady? He said, well, that's my sister. And she was married to my wife's, she was married to my wife's brother. Now, because I've left my wife, her brother has now left my sister.
Yeah.
I thought, that's not good, but I've got 2 clients now. Brilliant. No, I didn't think that. So I thought, double the money. So, but it was like, wow, just like that, on a sixpence, you've let my sister go, I'm gonna let your sister go. So there's that. Other things, like I said earlier, society's moved on. Predominantly the girls have educated themselves. They've become more independent. They've become more savvy. They've become more, I would say, streetwise. They don't take any, for want of a better word, crap or less of it. So that kind of, what they call sabr almost, or sort of, I'm just going to put up with it. Sabr is different to putting up with abuse. There's a big, people misuse the word sabr a lot. In our community, Islamically, they misuse the word sabr. Sabr doesn't mean stay there if you're unhappy, stay there if you're being abused, stay there no matter what. No. You're just being abused. Sabr means have patience that God has got a better plan. Have patience where you think things might change. Believe, but don't believe where there's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. And I think our elders had that, where they just went, no, we're just going to stay here. It doesn't matter. This is what happens in marriage. Ideas of marriage have changed. What should happen inside a marriage has changed. So I think all these things, that you are correct, but there are a lot of a multitude of reasons as to why things have changed.
Well, that's why you're here tonight. And honestly, even though it's a serious conversation, I love the take that you have. I love your character as to how you describe it. And it is real. And that's why you're here tonight. And I'm so grateful. But the thing is, we are going to go into a short break, in a while. However, if you do have your take, if you do have your story, if you want to share it tonight, please do so. We have an amazing guest tonight who has so much experience dealing with these issues. And there's definitely help. There's help out there for myself and my guest. Please call in if you wish to do so. And we'll be taking more of your questions as well as sharing more insights. We have a brilliant topic tonight. It's a serious situation that we're dealing with nowadays, where there is so much tradition, there's so much culture clashes. Parents want the best for their kids, but do they actually know what is good for their kids? Just like a few seconds before we go into the break, Javed, do you really think that parents need also a bit of education with regards to what their children require, not just for this dunya, but this for akhirah as well, because it's a responsibility?
100%. And the only way of doing that is learning more about Islam and not bringing culture into it. Unfortunately, we have this cultural ism, and the ism of the culture overtakes everything else, absolutely everything else. And the reason I say that is sometimes when I speak to certain people and they get very religious with me, and especially some of the women. And I said, well, if your son came home and said, I'm getting married to a 45-year-old divorcee, and he was 25 years old, what would you say? And they say, oh, no way, our neighbors would kill us. What would the community say? What would people say? And you're going, well, that's exactly what the Prophet ﷺ did. That's exactly what he did. From my understanding, he was 25 years old, and he got married to his wife who was 45. And she was independent, financially independent. She was a very savvy businesswoman. Imagine that happening in this day and age. And he was single, So
that was an amazing example. And you know what? We are going to definitely bring back more information with regards to this topic. It's really heating up here. Please stay exactly where you are. Do not go away. And inshallah, we'll have more insights, information from Javed. See you soon. Take care and stay exactly where you are.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I am loving the conversation right now, and honestly, it's so important that you are with us here tonight, Javed, and you've given us so many things so far. We do have a comment which I'd like for you to sort of respond to. We have someone that's messaged saying that often due to others' involvement in the marriage, example, sister-in-laws, mother-in-laws, also our generation don't have the tolerance like our parents did. Those are the reasons why we actually have relationship breaks. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. However, and this is again one of my big bugbears, but having done this for so long, the experience is other people do get involved. But again, it's the nature of the relationship. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, if you're going to get married to your first cousin or a second cousin, or you're going to get married inside the family, you're going to have family involvement. If you're going to get married from abroad, you're going to have family involvement, because chances are it was a marriage by, sort of the elders. So they're going to have a piece of the pie now. They're going to have their pound of flesh. They're going to say, well, we're the ones who arranged this, therefore we have a right over this marriage. Now, what tends to happen is a lot of the people that come see me to get divorced, the South Asian people, the majority of the time, there has been involvement from the family, whether it's the in-laws, their own parents, someone said something, someone's not doing something, someone's, I get a lot of people who are married from Pakistan, the girls who get married from Pakistan, they say, oh, my husband is sending everything to Pakistan. He's built a 5-story mansion and we're living in a 2-bedroom house here because his mum and his dad and his sisters and his brothers keep saying, send money. And then I've got a daughter who's 14 and in 4 years' time, they're going to say, no, you need to bring her to Pakistan to get married. So it just kind of escalates. Whereas if you set a boundary line at the beginning, if you set a boundary line, you won't have what I call a marriage by committee. I mean, a lot of these marriages are like a council meeting. Something happens and there's a meeting and they call 10 people and it's the girl's brothers and the girl and her dad and her mom and the two people who are married, let's go back to Tariq and Bushra. Yeah, so Tazi and Bash, they just sat in the middle going, well, it's got nothing to do with us. I'm going to let my brother and I'm going to let my, and it's like, well, what happened to Tariq? And why do you ask them what they want? But it becomes a marriage by committee. It becomes a decision-making by committee because, again, that's how the marriage started. With regards to the elder generation had patience, I'd agree and I disagree. They had patience because that's what they were taught. They didn't have patience because it was a lack of choice. It was the choice between patience and what else? Nothing. Right? Because again, like I said, you leave me, again, let's go back to my mom. She's 1975, she's going to leave my dad and go where? We didn't have the sort of, life skills that they've got now. They didn't have a lot of the institutions they've got now. They didn't have a lot of the support structure that they've got now. Now we've got stuff like Women's Aid, Staying Put, all these organizations, Black Sisters, etc., who can help women. We've got a lot of sort of, these halfway houses where ladies can go who are sort of victims of domestic violence. You didn't have that back then. So when they say patience, I always say, what other choice did they have? They didn't have any choice. But again, that generation was taught certain things about marriage from their parents. And chances are that parent or them parents were abroad anyway. So again, you've got this kind of mixing of culture from the homeland, from the old country, filtering down into where we are now in 2021. But what I say is, obviously, we're in England, we're in the United Kingdom. Let's put certain things, certain cultural isms, let's put certain of our practices, certain of our things that we do, put them to bed. I'm not saying let go of your culture. I'm not saying let go of, what we fundamentally believe. I'm a Pakistani Muslim and I identify as such. I identify as a he male, just in case anybody else is watching. There's this whole thing of gender fluid and what you identify as. I get emails now from people saying he stroke him, and I'm like going, I know your name's Dave. Of course it's a he stroke him, but the world's gone a little bit potty. So I identify myself as a Pakistani Muslim British bloke, but my Pakistani culture is very important to me. The good parts, the parts which I know I can now pass on to my children, but the bad parts, especially when it comes to relationships and marriages and being closed off. We did not have a talk about the birds and bees with our parents. We didn't talk about having feelings or relationships that potentially we want to have with our parents. We just it wasn't even up for discussion. But now we're in 2022. Things have to change.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny that you say that as well, because I guess relationship goals, like you said, has changed over time. Before it was for political reasons, even for, economical reasons. And now, we're considering, someone's feelings. But then when you are considering even someone's feelings and emotions, unfortunately as well, because human behavior does dip in and out of, just the emotion. And I guess we also have to have that balance of understanding your emotion and your desire, but also knowing what is right. And as you went back to saying that we need to understand our deen and faith more, because we do live more by our traditions. And I've witnessed it myself with some of the clients that I've coached, especially from the South Asian, like you mentioned, Pakistani background, that they live more with regards to following the rules of their traditions, regardless of, how is it that even Islamically it's done. So I definitely understand that. However, do you think that even living with your in-laws, if you were to even have these rules in place nowadays, do you feel that it can actually be done? Because if you're going to set that from the beginning, then marriage may not even happen. They might not even accept the fact that you are actually putting these boundaries and these, sort of things in place, like you mentioned. So then a lot of people are actually finding that they're not even getting married because they've got all this criteria in front of them. So how do you navigate that when you want to also have information with regards to being great with, balance, but at the same time, that balance is restricting you from getting married?
Well, I mean, the thing with the setting boundaries and having conditions, it depends what they are. If they're reasonable, then there's nothing wrong with that. And also, there's two people in a marriage. You need to discuss these things. And I know a lot of people who say, I don't want to live with my in-laws. For whatever reason, for a myriad of reasons, they say, I don't want to live with my in-laws because maybe they've heard horror stories or maybe they know what their potential in-laws are like. But again, these things need to be discussed beforehand. You need to sit down. You need to say, hang on a minute, what role does your family have in your life? Or, and are they going to control? Is it going to be micromanaged? Like I said before, is it going to be a marriage by committee? So if I need, if I need to go out to see my mum, do I need to ask you or do I need to tell you? Do I need to ask your mum or do I need to tell your mum? Do I need to speak to your sister? What exactly is the sort of dynamics of that house? Now, some girls say we just don't want to live with in-laws. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's a personal choice. That's like saying, I want to get married from one city and not another. Right? It's just a personal choice. But everything needs to be discussed pre-marriage. Not only in-laws, you have other stuff like, finances and how we're going to live our life, where we're going to live, things like that. All these things need to be discussed. But the problem is sometimes we don't discuss them.
Absolutely. And you know what? We have a comment actually saying that, thank you, Javed, for speaking tonight. And they love your take and the realness of what really is going on in our communities. And we also have a few questions that I'd like to go through so you can actually give your sort of response on that. We have someone saying that surely they agree that deen is the most important factor. However, there's a lot of brainwashing effects that happen. And there's no appreciation nowadays, whether it's from the parents or the children's sides. And most of the reasons of divorce is zina, affairs, due to the technology and no modesty. And the last part is saying, thank you for the show, but what could you say are the red flags that we should look for in a relationship? And is divorce the best for marriage, even if it is bad? And how can a young Muslim find someone for marriage and not an arranged marriage? Well, we'll come back to you on that, Javed, because I think that, there was a long list of questions. Did you hear of most of what I've said?
Unfortunately, I didn't. I only got the first couple of sentences.
No problem. Basically, they're saying that, at the end of the day, there's lots of marriages breakage due to affairs, zina. So a lot of infidelity. And they want to know, basically, do you think that divorce is the right way to sort of have a relationship end instead of trying to fix it? And if someone is looking for marriage, how can they find someone without it being arranged in a way that they're not going to upset their parents?
I mean, dealing with the first part in terms of the affairs, infidelity, adultery, etc., that obviously is quite predominant in this day and age, unfortunately, and we see it a lot in our job. We don't normally use it as a reason for divorce, which you can do, which is adultery, one of the 5 reasons. We can put that under unreasonable behavior. However, any bloke or woman who has an affair, I think their partner, their husband or their wife would deem it a little bit more than unreasonable, to be honest. But, that's sort of by the by. But the reason for that, again, is look at the age we're living in. Everything is at your fingertips. You got your phone. You can pick your phone up. Within 5 minutes, you can be connected to the whole world. You could do whatever you want. 30 years ago, you couldn't do that. Now, you pick your phone up, you make a profile somewhere, boom. You can link, connect, whatever the terminology is, with 100,000 people. The temptation, the access, the sort of ease at which you can do wrong things, not just zina, but anything, is there now. So you have to have that self-control. Whether divorce is the right way after adultery or after you've had marriage troubles, it depends on your values. It depends on, I have a lot of clients who say, listen, after what he's done, I can't go back because that bond, that trust is broken. I have a lot of people who turn around and they say, I don't care. As long, I have a lot of girls, I'll be honest with you, I get a lot of girls who I speak to and they say, I don't care as long as he comes home to me at night. As long as he comes home to me at night, I don't care. And I'm like going, that's not a marriage. Again, that sort of Islamic cultural definition of a marriage has been screwed. It's been messed around with. It's been reshaped into this anomaly that we don't actually know. Now, in terms of trying to find a partner without upsetting your parents, I mean, like I said, it's 2022. Everybody knows people. Everybody has a wider circle now. You have this halal speed dating. You've got single Muslim websites. You've got, people like yourself who know a lot of people. I'm not saying people should get in touch with you. Don't do that. And but I'm saying you have a wider network. And again, when it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen. What I would resist is saying, do not rush into anything. I've seen too many people, especially girls, rush into marriage. They're like, oh, I'm 31, I'm 32, I need to get married. And they end up getting married just for the sake of getting married. 6 months down the line, it turns out, the guy is whatever. I've seen guys do it as well. And I've seen girls do it, predominantly girls, because they have this thing of, I need to get married because I'm 30.
That is so true. I love that you brought that up, actually. It's so true that people are rushing into marriage because of the age. And in a way, they're actually causing more problems for themselves. We are coming into another break at this very moment. And honestly, this conversation is so exciting for myself. And I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. This is the realest conversation we've ever had to date. And I love our guest tonight. Inshallah, we're going to have more of him in a few moments. When we do go to a short break, please stay exactly where you are. You do not want to miss the end part of this show, especially with our guest tonight. But I hope to see you in a few moments, and we'll catch you on the other end. Take care.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And this is the last part of the show, but honestly, I could go on for another couple of hours with you. My guest tonight, amazing Javed, who's given us the realest talk that we've had for a very long time, which is definitely needed. Now, you've highlighted a lot of the issues. You've highlighted, how the foundations are not set in a particular way. and it does end in divorce. A lot of interference from family, culture, norms, unfortunately, traditions that needs to be broken. Generation gap, and obviously, there needs to be more communication, understanding between parents and children. Now, when you do see these marriages fail and break, what is the impact for someone new that's entering into a marriage, even if it's after their previous marriage, or if they've heard stories? What are the criteria of, now getting married, and what's the impact? So that we can learn some lessons, so we can move forward healthy. But at the same time, now we also have to face the consequences of all this breakdown. And there's so much more systems put into place and demands put into place because of this marriage breakdown that is ever increasing. What are the criteria that you're seeing that people are coming to you saying and demanding if they're going to get new marriage after another, or they've heard, horror stories, and this is what they want from their partner now?
Well, that's an interesting topic that you just sort of asked, or we've sort of started discussing, is because the criteria that a divorced woman is looking for is because they've been divorced, because they've been through a nasty relationship, for want of a better word, they've been through the sort of mill. The second time, they're very, very careful. So now they've learned from the first marriage what went wrong, and now they're obviously going to be like, okay, I don't want to do this. I want someone like this. I want someone like this. My issue is that everybody who's looking to get married should have that mindset from the beginning. You don't need to wait for a marriage to fail to then learn a lesson. Learn it from the beginning. Use other people as an example. I've got a lot of friends. I know a few girls, they got divorced. They're going to get remarried, and they went deep. I mean, they went right. We're talking sort of matrix deep. They were like, I want to see the DBS. I want to see your council tax bill. I want to see everything, because I want to make sure what you're telling me is the truth. I want to make sure what you're telling me is actually correct, because I've been here before where people have said, her ex-husband had probably said to her, I've got a house and I've got this and I've got that. And it turned out actually he's just spent 5 years in prison for armed robbery or something. So, the sort of second time, they're a lot more diligent, they're a lot more clued up. But my argument is that you should be that the first time round. If we hold back the emotions and be more delving into the other person and kind of sort of say, right, we're going to get married. I need to know X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Tell me this stuff. But no, because a lot of the time we're so caught up in the wedding and we're so kind of happy, and we're, choosing clothes and we're booking halls and we're doing this, and we forget about the fundamentals. That after all
absolutely,
this
we do have another question, actually. Javed, we do have another question. It's also interesting that you say that divorcees are now having much more stricter criteria, because usually in the past, it's like they become divorced, they're second class, and they're actually having lower expectations. But you're telling me in this day and age that they're actually having a little bit more deep sort of like expectations, right? Which is really interesting, the point that you've made. The other question we've had is, because we're talking a lot about, there's problems because of the past generation and past traditions. However, someone's saying that nowadays we have problems and marriage issues because of all the modernization and un-Islamic marriages that are happening. What is your response to that?
When they say modernization and Islamic marriages, I'm not sure what the un-Islamic marriage is, because either you have your nikah and it's Islamic, or you don't have your nikah and it's not Islamic.
Maybe the ideology I would explain, because maybe like you said, the criteria are different to before, and that's a modern thing, because before it was easier to also maybe get married.
Yeah, but when did decency and being normal become modern? When did being honest, open, truthful, transparent, saying it how it is, when did that become modern? I thought it was always there. I think if anything, it's become a bit of a niche, because now it's all about the show. It's all about, look at my Beamer and look at my, bling bling and everything. And, we're going to meet in a shisha bar and it's going to be brilliant. And we're going to go to Dubai and take selfies. That's what I think it's become. Or maybe I'm just an old curmudgeon-y bloke. Am I making sense? The modernization, I'm not entirely sure, because the old ethics are the best ethics. Again, if you drag it back, if you keep dragging it back, we go back to Islam, which is about decency. It's about openness. It's about transparent. It's about being honest with each other. It's about looking after each other. It's about wanting the best for each other, whether it's your husband, your wife, your brother, your neighbor, everything. Where's that gone? Why? Okay, if this is what you're calling modernization, what I'm seeing on social media and in the new age marriages, where and this is the thing, is we have now, just slightly sort of diverting culturally, we have now more old people's homes for South Asian people than we've ever had. We didn't have this 30 years ago. We didn't have 25 years ago. If that's modernization, I'm not sure I want this modernization. I'm not sure I want the modernization where, you know, you've got people are saying, well, actually, no, let's just get married because I find you attractive. I find you physically attractive and you find me physically attractive. So we're going to get to know each other for 2 weeks, and to halalify it, we're just going to get married. I mean, is that modern? For me, that's...
No, you're absolutely right. We had another message, actually. I mean, they are coming through fast. And I guess the same person saying it's not about modern and un-Islamic. I guess he's trying to say that it's no deen Islamic practice. Well, that's also for old traditions as well as the new tradition. So I guess, you know, bottom line is, if you have no Islam, then either way, there is definitely doomed for failure.
No, absolutely. Again, it's about the foundations. And if you have the foundations that are Islamic, that come from the Islamic principles, which, if I'm honest, you know, we have the best. All the religions teach them. You know, there's no religion out there that says, go kill your neighbor. No religion out there that says, treat your wife badly.
But I have to interrupt you there. Sorry, I have to interrupt you there, because when it comes to even deen and Islam, we do have a lot of people interpreting their own or picking and choosing what it is that suits them. Do you not think that that also needs to be cleared up, and more conversations in the minbar, in the Islamic centers, in the mosques, and filtered to our community leaders, so that we can actually have that kind of education? It's not about going to mosque just to, you know, recite Quran, but understand it, because we don't have that understanding from a young age, most definitely.
No, we don't. But again, if you're a bloke of a certain age or you're a woman of a certain age, and if you've got an ideology in your head that you want to pursue, you're going to find an imam, or you're going to find a phrase, or you're going to find a ruling that is going to suit your narrative. It's not going to be the truth, but it suits your narrative. So I have guys coming to me, and I'm not an imam, I'm not a mufti, I'm not a Maulvi, I'm nothing of that ilk. But they will ring me and they say, I want to get married again. Do I need to tell my first wife? And I say, well, I don't know the Islamic ruling, but because I'm not a sheikh or a mufti or anything, but out of common decency, I think you better. And they say, okay, I'll go speak to somebody else then. Because what they'll do is they'll ring 10 other imams and 10 other people until they get the answer they want. So sometimes what happens is we start using Islam for our own narrative, rather than following the narrative of Islam, rather than following what it's actually teaching us. We want the answer we want because it suits our narrative. So we're bending it to our will, rather than us bending to the will of Islam. And that's the issue here.
Absolutely. That is a great, great point. And that is so true. I'm loving everything that you're saying. And are there any other sort of like lessons that we could learn and take forward from all of the issues that you've just raised so far, so that we can round up a little bit of some of the things that maybe people can practically use, and they don't have to make these mistakes? Or if they're in it, they can maybe divert slightly and transform themselves?
I would say, obviously, for the parents, speak to your children, understand them, understand what they want. It's a different generation. It's a different breed. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm 45, my daughter's 12. There's a generation gap. I try to bridge that every single day the best that I can. For the children, anybody who's getting married, the sort of potential bride and grooms, I would say get to know your partner, get to know them well. I know it's very difficult, try to think with a linear approach. Speak to people who have been married. Don't speak to the people who are in good marriages. Speak to the people that you know that are in bad marriages, and to ask them why it's bad. And then when they tell you why it's bad, think, what am I going to do to avoid that pitfall? What am I going to do to avoid that? And can I avoid it? And the ones that are in the marriage, talk to each other, communicate. Communicate is going to be the only way. If you look at, anything, communication is the key. Understanding, communication, and listening to each other, not listening to reply, but actually listening to each other. That's the key here. Communication.
Definitely. I mean, we can have communication and we have to listen to understand each other. But when there's so much sort of resentment as to how things need to, change, because everyone hates change. No one likes change, even the modern ones, right? So you can imagine listening to your parents and, them telling you something or you telling them something. They'll listen to you, but they may not actually follow through. There is still a lot to do in the community where that sort of mindset and that generation gap will actually transform. Because like you said, it's been years already that people have settled here. And that hasn't really shifted as much as how the times have shifted, whereby we're losing even close relationships, family relationships, because one is just making a different choice. And, families are breaking because of the choices. Now, what would you advise for families that are struggling or couples that are struggling to come together building that foundation. And we've only got a couple of minutes. If you can maybe give us a sort of like a overall general kind of view, as well as how to reach you, because I'm sure loads of people would love to have more insight from yourselves. And I really want you to share, how do people reach you, as well as your final thoughts.
I mean, my final thoughts are what you said about change. You've got to ask yourself what changes are needed, who wants to do the changes, who doesn't want the changes. Now, that's the third question. Who doesn't want the changes? Now, the ones that don't want the changes is the one who's the status quo benefits. Now, that usually in our community, the South Asian community, that's the patriarchs. So, if you're a patriarch, you don't want changes because at the moment, the system is tilted towards you. So what I would say, if I'm honest with you, and I've said this many times before on different platforms, the instigators of the change are going to be the women because they're the ones who need to do it. The men, they don't need to do it as much because they're already in a position of power in our communities. In a lot of sense, they're already in a position of power. It's the women who, and it is happening. It is happening.
Wow, Javed, you've given me so much information. And like I said, I can literally talk to you for another hour or two at no problem. But before we end, I really want you to quickly say, how can people reach you before we end the show, please? We've only got a few seconds left.
Yeah, you can reach me. The website is www.cskylegal.co.uk. You can call us on 01 274 98 1818. And we're very sort of active on Instagram, Claire Sky Legal, Claire_Sky.
Thank you so much. Legal. It's been an absolute pleasure. No, it went by so quickly. Thank you everyone for watching. And thank you so much to my guest who's been so brilliant and superb tonight. Inshallah, we'll have more conversations like this and we hope to see Javed as well. Please do reach him and do stay tuned next week, same time, same place. We will continue with more relationship issues, more topics, more guests, and I hope to see you next week, inshallah. Have a lovely evening. Take care.